The idea for London Alive came about in 2015. The plan was to put on a show featuring as many London bus types as we possibly could, covering all eras, such as the Harris bus. Another aim was to try and get all the London operators involved, as well as TfL, the London Transport Museum, London Bus Museum, and some of the leading preservation groups. Finding a location for the show was proving quite tricky, and it wasn't until December when, after a chance conversation with some guys from Stagecoach, we were offered West Ham Garage for the show. A site visit followed, and it soon became apparent there was going to be plenty of room for buses and sales stands. The organisation of the show then began in earnest. First up, create a list of preferred exhibits and work out where to put them. Then, after measuring the east wing, work out the sales stand layout and invite the traders. You then spend hours on the phone and on the computer sending and receiving emails. Create an event logo and start advertising. There were lots of meetings. This one was to finalise ticket design and programme layout, which, when finished, needs to be proofed. Advance tickets had to be sent, banners designed and produced, bus blinds for the shuttles were created, as was a range of merchandise. Before we go to the show, here is a brief history about West Ham Garage. It is actually located in Canning Town and covers an area of 7.2 acres with a capacity for 330 buses. Not surprisingly, it is London's biggest garage. It was built on the site of the old parcel force depot to the west of Stevenson Street, and work began in 2007. The main building is big enough to house Stagecoach's London HQ as well as the garage staff. It features 4 27-metre span vaults. The 2 outer vaults, known as the wings, are used for access to the Centre 2, which house the engineering element of the garage. The building's green credentials include a sedum planted roof to control runoff of rainwater, which is then harvested. Once the yard area was finished, a wind turbine was also installed to provide electricity. Inside there are 30 bays with 26 pits, 6 of which were extra long to accommodate bendy buses. You remember them? The garage became fully operational in June 2010. Bus access to the garage is via North Crescent on the west side. A controller sits in the gatehouse and operates the barriers. These shots were taken in 2014. The most common buses allocated to West Ham are Alexander Dennis Tridents, around 80 at the time of making this programme. 18460 arrives back at the garage after a trip on Route 147, which is now no longer run from here. Incidentally, although operated by Stagecoach, the garage is actually owned by Transport for London. The 115 is still run from West Ham, and it's one of 13 routes operated from the garage. 18232 is one of the last to leave on the morning run out. A system of lanes is used to park up buses overnight, and a clockwise one-way system operates in the yard. The yard itself can accommodate 240 buses, and another 90 can fit inside the shed building. In July 2016, the garage had a peak vehicle requirement of 148. There were around 600 drivers based here, 16 supervisors of management and 86 controllers. There are also 12 conductors, as West Ham is the home for 10 route masters that work the Heritage Route 15 service. 5 are used daily, and the fleet is currently undergoing refurbishment. They are normally stabled in the southeast part of the yard, which has become known as Route Master Corner. The morning run-outs for the RMs begins around 9 AM. Single-deckers are represented by Enviro 200s. Incidentally, the rows nearest the garage building are usually used to store new and withdrawn buses, plus vehicles requiring engineering attention. This view is from inside the east wing. A trident reverses out of one of the engineering bays, following mechanical attention. A team of 46 engineers are employed to keep West Ham's fleet serviceable. They also carry out work for Stagecoach's other garages. New buses come to West Ham for fitting out, and old ones for removal of equipment prior to disposal. With so much space available, the garage is also a useful location to apply the advertising vinyls. Back in 2014, the Stagecoach batch of black new route masters received their Adidas World Cup ads in the east wing. Other companies' buses also appear at West Ham. For instance, a Tower Transit Volvo Gemini 2 gets a chassis deep clean. West Ham is also the base for Stagecoach's driver training centre. During the day, the empty yard is perfect to teach the newbie recruits. And finally, the garage also services the megabus van hauls that run down overnight from Scotland. Right, moving on. Friday the 22nd of July 2016. The main job was to move around 40 new and withdrawn buses out of the yard to a storage location to the north of the garage. For this operation, the little used exit in Stevenson Street, or Route Master Corner, was used. 17778 had recently been withdrawn from North Street Garage. Some of Stagecoach's finest were given the task of moving the buses. 150 fence panels had already been delivered. These would be used the following morning to fence off the display area. By mid-afternoon, the portable toilets arrived. All the essentials were now covered. Two of the exhibits, a Versa and a Gemini 3 from Plumstead, were parked out of the way, whilst the yard clearance continued. Quite surprisingly, only a couple of the buses needed a jump start from the portable battery pack. Some of the training buses were sent to Rainham for the weekend, whilst others were moved to the storage area. The whole clearance operation took under 3 hours, a lot quicker than anticipated. We even remembered to keep the buses required for the show in the yard. Well, all but one, which had to be rescued. These were then lined up in rows, ready to be moved into place the following morning. So this was the scene just prior to the evening run-in. If all went to plan overnight, a smooth run-out would follow in the morning, and we would have a decent sized area available for the show. Saturday, 23rd of July, and showtime. The one thing we couldn't control. Luckily the gods smiled on us. Whilst West Ham was a hive of activity setting up the show on the Saturday morning, the first of the day's events was already underway. Russell Young had arranged to run Ensign's RT3251 in service on routes 262 and 69. It arrives and departs at Sainsbury's in East Beckton. Meanwhile, back at the garage, the show buses were beginning to arrive. Rather appropriately, DMS1 is the first. As it was originally nicknamed the Londoner, we just had to have this 1970 built bus at the show, which is now owned by the LT Museum. Also arriving at the wrong entrance was the Chinese-built electric double-decker, BYD 1474. The bus had travelled from Wheelston Garage on the other side of London to be at the show. It is one of 5, and they can be found operating on Route 98. very late addition on Friday morning to the lineup was Go Ahead's Optare double-decker demonstrator. The bus had only arrived at Bexley Heath Garage 2 days before the show. The privately owned GS15 overtakes it and heads for the entrance in North Crescent. Go Ahead were great supporters of the show. The specially liveried Mercedes Citaro MAL15 is followed in by their BYD electric EB2, both from Waterloo Garage. Incidentally, that is M1 parked up on the bridge, awaiting its first run on the shuttles to and from Canning Town. Arriva were also big supporters of the event. The driver of one of their lovely Enviro 400H cities, HA16, gets instructions. This one is based at Ash Grove for use on Route 78. We move round to the North Crescent entrance. The morning run out was going smoothly, and by 9:30 most of the fencing was now in place. The area nearest the camera would act as the operational part of the garage for the day. T-Type T792 was one of the first buses offered to us for the show. It was followed in by another Go Ahead electric, Irizar EI1. With papers checked, it was allowed to proceed. The Upminster and District Omnibus Preservation Group kindly provided a few buses, including Dart Pointer DP327, which was repainted into Thameside livery earlier in 2016. The Leyland National was represented by this privately owned example, LS24. It had travelled from North Essex to the show. Meanwhile, the last few buses on the run out were departing. Next in from Go Ahead's Croydon garage was the street deck style Volvo B5LH Gemini 3, WHV 58. Sullivan buses were also great supporters of the show. and they sent one of only 3 Trident Presidents still in TfL service. TPL927 is one of only 2 10.5 metre variants still working in London. Following from the Bromley Bus Preservation Group is a Dark Marshall. Formerly with First, it was numbered DMS 41356. Bringing up the rear is an Alexander City Bus number 143. This vehicle spent 10 years from 1988 on the flagship route 24. Arriva sent RM5 to help out on the shuttles. After having its special blinds fitted, it leaves the garage to begin work. And still, thankfully, they kept coming. Ensign's MD60. The 1949 built RTL 554. Titan T21. This was substituted for the planned T66 on Friday due to the latter falling ill. Luckily, the Upminster and District boys have more than one Titan. The original Gemini was represented by one of Sullivan's, WVL-2. One of West Ham's Tridents follows it in after a session on Route 158. RM1005 was kindly offered for use on the Docklands tours. In the weeks prior to the show, it had received a Cummins Euro 6 engine. It was followed in by RTW 467. And the lovely privately owned RF672. Another of the Upminster Group's buses, Olympian 218, which was driven straight to the show from the paint shop. Nice. As we neared 11 AM and opening time, most of the buses had arrived. And this was the scene inside the show at around 10:45. Our roving cameraman captured the final preparations. The plan was to try and group buses from similar eras together. Another plan was for each bus to be a different type. During the planning stages, the list of exhibitors was changing constantly. Some dropped out due to mechanical MOT issues, others were promised but never confirmed. So right up until the day before the show, we were still trying to obtain alternatives. In fact, the Thursday before the event, we got word from Arriva that DLA1 had been involved in a collision and wouldn't be able to attend. Then, by late afternoon, it became apparent that 5 buses that had been promised weren't going to be available. This created a bit of a problem. We would be 5 buses light. But even more annoying was that we could have acquired some of their types from other operators. A begging call was made to Go-Ahead, who thankfully agreed to supply 2 more buses, and Stagecoach agreed to let us have another 2 of their fleet. We could breathe again until Friday afternoon, when news filtered through to us that Ensign's Cub, C4, had blown its engine en route to West Ham. Unbeknown to us at this time, we were totally unaware of the problem with Titan T66. But thankfully, as previously mentioned, the owners worked wonders to get another of their Titans to the show. One of the planned highlights was to get an example of each of the electric buses at the show. There was a small panic on this in the week leading up to the event, but on the day they all made it. A couple of late arrivals: the London Bus Museum's 1925 D-Type, D142 and RT1. On the journey to West Ham, so it had to be exhibited outside the show area. It was a relief to find that outside the crowds were building. The first shuttle buses had already been in service, and Sullivan's RML2272 was having its blind fitted prior to its first run. With RT1 in place, the site was deemed as static, and it was finally time to open. For the record, this is what attended, and who they were from. Three buses were used for the shuttle service, which ran between Canning Town and the garage. RM5, owned by Phil Swallow, is in the care of Arriva.
What's that, Vision make another DVD or DVD?
RML2272, now fully blinded, brings in another load. This bus was new in November 1965 and continued in service until 2003, when it was purchased by Sullivan's. Earlier in 2016, it was used in service on Route 298 during the tube strike. The third shuttle bus was Ensign's Metrobus M1. It heads past Star Lane DLR station en route to Canning Town. M1 entered service in 1978. And on the return in the rather uncared for Bidder Street. RM5 gingerly makes its way down the potholed road. The shuttles ran a circular route for ease of operation, and thanks to TfL, had their own dedicated bus stop to use at Canning Town. RM5 departs West Ham and heads back to Canning Town to pick up more visitors. Whilst RML2272 heads for a break. Ooh, a London Underground Jubilee service heads for Stratford. Whilst M1 crosses the bridge. And meets Stagecoach's RM1933 coming back the short way from Canning Town. This route master ran an extra trip on the shuttles in the afternoon to cover for lunch breaks.
Oh no!
We also ran some circular Docklands tours. RM1005 comes out to play and passes RM1933, which was heading back to the garage. The tours ran to Silvertown and City Airport, returning via the Isle of Dogs. Whilst it was awaiting its next trip, we took the chance to look at RM1005's new Euro 6 Cummins engine. It is believed that this is now the greenest London bus. Quite staggering.
You can see in there? Oh yeah, you can see. Go.
A trio of RMs, RM1005 waiting to go out on tour, RML2272 back on the shuttles, and RM613, which was also on tour duty. This and 1005 were late additions to run the tours after some of the planned buses had become unavailable. A big thanks to Sir Peter Hendy and Leon Daniels for bailing us out. We had anticipated the tours would take about 25 minutes. In reality, it was taken about 45. Oops. The Bromley Preservation Group's recently preserved Bendy-Bus MAL15 also made some appearances on the tours. We believe this was the first time since 2005 that one had operated in London, but we could be wrong. Not surprisingly, as it was a very hot day, United Transit's open-top Olympian OA332 was a popular bus for the tours. It crosses Connaught Bridge between Royal Victoria Dock and Royal Albert Dock. M1 also made a sneaky appearance on the tours. It circumnavigates the North Woolwich roundabout and heads off towards the Isle of Dogs. Meanwhile, RT3251 had migrated onto Route 69. A small dog's eye view. Sovereign had very kindly brought Bendy-Bus MA1 on a low loader from Perivale to the show. Therefore, it only seemed fair to let them show off some of their recovery vehicles. Not surprisingly, Visions had a large sales stand. The bus is one of two Tridents that Stagecoach have for engineering training. We use this one as a billboard and as the event control bus. Inside the east wing there was plenty to buy, and on behalf of all the traders we say thank you for your fantastic custom during the event. And for the record, here is an elevated view of all the exhibits at London Alive 2016. Then it was all over, and the great exodus began. This was definitely worth staying to the end for. That was GS15, and this is T792. Short RM ST812 with its bigger brother LT2. EI1, a Stagecoach Enviro 200 working in service on Route 323, followed by the Waterloo base pair EB2 and Mech 50. Arriva's Electric EMC5, followed by the big BYD. Some of the buses escape via the Stevenson Street gate. RTL 554 heads home. Next out was Sullivan's Trident. The London Bus Museum's Dennis D-Type and TD95 head back to Brooklands. Followed by their third exhibit, RT1. Go ahead's Gemini 3 meets a Stagecoach Enviro 200 on the 323. The LT Museum's DMS1 departs. And is followed out by one of the types that were ordered to replace it, the Scania chassis Metropolitan MD60. It wasn't just the buses that were the celebs at the event. Bus Driver of the Year Will Bradford departs in his Dark Marshall. The oldest and newest exhibits depart the show together, K424 and OM1. Meanwhile, LS24 heads home. The K was running around the block to be reunited with its low loader before hitching a lift back to Acton Depot. The Optare double-decker enters service a few days later. And still they kept coming. The City Bus led Sullivan's Man Evolution out. The final shuttle bus, RML2272, arrived to take the last of the visitors back to Canning Town. Next out came two of ADL's newest products, the Virtual Electric, heading back to Lee Valley Interchange, and the 400H City going back to Ash Grove. As we watch the last few buses depart, it is quite staggering that just over an hour after the show closed, all the display buses had left and all the buses moved into storage for the day were all back in the yard. All the fencing had been packed up and all the toilets collected. Looking at the garage, you would never have guessed what had been going on during the day. London Alive 2016 wouldn't have been possible without the help of so many people, from Stagecoach allowing us to have West Ham for the day and their staff who worked so hard on the event, to TfL and the operators for their cooperation, the preservationists who brought their wonderful vehicles, the stewards who set up the fencing and kept everything running, the ticket desk team, the bus controllers, those that helped with the programme and provided photos, and of course Marcus, who filmed the events for this DVD. Thank you, one and all. Until next time, if there is a next time, goodbye.